What's up, guys? Nick G here doing another video on Saturn worship, and I'm going to show you a bunch of things that I've come across and just sort of, rapid fire show you a bunch of pictures that pictures and screenshots that I've taken that'll basically hopefully give you an idea of what this is all about. And maybe some of them are just interesting, maybe some of them are just me speculating, but take it for what it's worth. If you haven't seen my first episode or my first video on Saturn worship, then watch that one. And there's plenty of videos on YouTube about Saturn worship, and I think it's one of the most important things to understand if you're into understanding what the psychology and spiritual side of things is to the New World Order, instead of just looking at manifestations and symptoms. I think this gets at the real cause of what's behind it. And anyways, my computer's having a hard time keeping all these photos open, so as I go along, this is going to be pretty sloppy, but as I go along I'm going to X them out. And there's probably a more ideal order to do this in, but it's the best I can do, and I have a lot to show you. So first off, right here, what we have is called the Seal of Saturn. Just how I've said in the previous video, there's a bunch of names and symbols and gods. There's a bunch of gods and symbols that go by different names, but they ultimately point back to the same thing, which is Saturn or Satan. And this is the Seal of Saturn, right? Again, you got to watch my first one because I'm covering more. That's where my first video on Saturn worship, because that's where I covered more of the basic stuff. So this is me being more, being more intricate about it. Anyways, if you connect these, it would be, this is just me guessing, if you connected these, it'd be a hexagram or a hexagon, and that would be a two-dimensional image of a three-dimensional cube. There's a hexagon storm on the North Pole of Saturn, and that is also a cube. The cube signifies Saturn. How I'm telling you there's different symbols that represent the same thing, it gets a little confusing, but this symbol, this seal right here, represents Saturn. So does a cube. So there's the Seal of Saturn, right? And right here, if you remembered how that seal looked, boom, boom, and you got Chucky from Rugrats, and what's on his shirt? Saturn. There's no way that's an accident. And they made it so the cage that he's stuck behind, from and the psychology of Saturn, would, putting it mildly, would be that of a tyrant or a authority, you know what I mean? And I'm not saying that's all negative, but it's absolutely can be. And there's no reason, or there's definitely a reason that they made Chucky holding his hands behind this prison, and the Seal of Saturn is straight over him in the shape of the bars that are holding him back, and then they have Saturn on his shirt. And I never realized this when I was younger, but I mean, who would have? We all watched the show when we were children. This is just me being weird now. Maybe his glasses, there's the cube. That's probably me just being over the top about it. But no question, the Seal of Saturn, and then Saturn on his shirt. No question about it. Okay, right here is the Quantum Cube. There's a Yu-Gi-Oh movie, an anime. You guys probably know what Yu-Gi-Oh is. This is from a movie called Yu-Gi-Oh! Dark Side of Dimensions, I think. And the villain uses this cube as his main weapon. And right here, look. Following his defeat at Yugi's hands, Agami was transported to another dimension where he stumbled upon the Millennium Ring. Without even touching it, he was corrupted by its evil. So he was corrupted by the Millennium Ring. The ring, the circle, represents time. The square represents space. So he was corrupted by time, like all of us are. I have another video called The Young in Heart versus Time, and it goes really into depth on that specific dynamic of this whole Saturn thing. He was corrupted by its evil, and upon returning to the main dimension, reveals that he bonded it with the quantum cube in order to bring about his corrupted version of a new world. This is like, I couldn't believe what I was watching when I saw this, man. After Agami's final defeat, Kaiba took possession of the cube, using it to enter the afterlife in order to duel Atem, which is the spirit of the pharaoh that embodies Yugi, and there's a whole bunch of symbolism behind that, but I'm sticking to the cube and ring thing right now. So he bonded the cube with the ring, time and space. Saturn has everything to do with time because one of the gods associated with Saturn is Kronos to the Greeks. Greeks called Saturn Kronos, and Kronos is the personification of time, the father of time, the god of time, however you want to look at that. And obviously, time has a way of making people cynical, pessimistic, thinking things are meaningless, indulging, because they have limited time here on this earth. I guess it could have an opposite effect too, but as people start to age, and dementia, they get Alzheimer's, they forget their memories, they forget who they are, they forget who their friends are, things like that. There's a reason time's associated with an evil force. So there you go, you have the quantum cube, and there's a whole aspect to this Saturn worship stuff that's like a scientific interpretation of it, like a physics interpretation of it. I'm not well versed enough in that to, I'll speak on it here and there, but I can't really give you a good layout of that. A lot of people can on YouTube. They're out there. And obviously, if you've studied conspiracy theories, for the lack of a better term, and the New World Order, you already on some level understand what this Saturn thing is, because that's what it comes down to, the tyranny, Heaven's Gate is a cult. I don't know a lot about them, but they all, committed mass suicide, ate cyanide and put bags on their heads and, asphyxiated themselves to, go on some great journey together. And this is their logo, and it's transposed over, guess which planet? Saturn. You're going to find out that a lot of cults had something to do with Saturn. I can't necessarily explain to you why or what they thought of it, but I can just kind of read. I can just pick up on the symbols to some degree. And another thing is, there's this rapper named Lil Uzi Vert. I talked about in another video. He took this image for his album. He took the Heaven's Gate logo. He might have even sampled them. I don't one of the cult leaders' dialogues. I don't know, but I haven't listened to that dude's music. But the point is, he took some of the imagery from this and applied it to his album cover. Yeah, I've made a video on that guy, and this isn't about music and hip hop, but the whole philosophy that's basically put on a pedestal by mainstream music is that of Saturn or Satanism. For the most part. I know that sounds extreme, but that's probably because people don't really have a basic understanding of what Satanism is. They think of I don't know, far-fetched things. This is called cube unity, or just unity. And if you think about what the New World Order is about, it's about dissolving nation states, consolidation of power, one world government, one world religion, one world monetary system, unity, right? Unity doesn't always mean a good thing. I've seen people unified under a heroin addiction. People throw these words out there like love, unity, it always automatically means something good, and it can't be twisted for nefarious intent, and it certainly can. People can be absolutely brainwashed or intimidated into being, or, put into a position of submission to be unified under something bad. And it's interesting, again, there's a correlation between Saturn and technology, and it's interesting that you'll see a lot of computer and technology companies utilizing Saturn symbolism, and that's not on accident either. And this is a game developer, a software programmer, I forget what they do, but it's interesting that they chose a cube and called it Unity. WJYS, the way, obviously Saturn. Here we see again, a correlation between technology and Saturn and television broadcasting, because that's a definite big, huge tool for social engineering, programming beliefs and values into people, creating fear, generating outrage at ridiculous things. Paradigm control, basically putting people in a box, putting their thoughts in a box and not really going outside of it. And I heard Alan Watt talking about there's this quote by Brzezinski, I believe he was saying, and he was saying if people, he said, Brzezinski was quoted as saying when the television was first put out there that the American people or people will come to a position after a certain amount of time to where they won't believe something unless they hear it on television. Like, oh, that can't be true, the TV didn't tell me it. And that's some straight control. That's some straight, like, religious, like that's the new priest. You know what I mean? And people are already kind of like that. Like, oh, did you hear that on a YouTube video? Like, they're like, if it's not told by them by the newscaster, they won't. And I get it, you want to be suspicious about your information, but people aren't equally suspicious or skeptical about what the TV or experts say to them. And they have an agenda. As far as I'm concerned, man, the TV's been dying, and that's because people are getting wise to their crap. Here's Chris Brown. He has this clothing company called Black Pyramid, and that in and of itself is pretty symbolic. And behind the Black Pyramid is Saturn. If you can see how the Black Pyramid's divided up into like a grid. I remember I saw a thing where he was insulting his fans that were talking about the price of the clothing. He's like, oh yeah, you broke motherfuckers can't afford. It's like, I don't know, man. I've talked about it over and over again, why people are so willing to basically grovel at the feet of people who treat them like crap, and then they turn around and treat the ones that truly love them like garbage. It's like the people that are always there for you, you need to have a change of values in your heart to where the people that are always there for you and caring for you and helping you grow and things like that are the ones that you truly care about. And the ones that are like dismissive, apathetic, borderline just don't like you, you need to stop like, oh, I want what I can't have. You need to stop that like teenager bullshit, to be quite honest with you. Like, that's some kid shit. And the fact that I don't know, whatever, man. The whole music industry's like this. Musicians will symbolically and lyrically basically tell you that they don't care about anyone but themselves, and fans will like surround them in hordes and like cry just to be in their presence. I don't know, man. The fact that, and how I was saying, I might have not even said to you guys, the reason that the Black Pyramid is split into a grid is because it represents compartmentalization. And you can't really tell right here because it's got the Astro Boy thing in front of it, but all the lines lead up to the pinnacle or the peak of the pyramid. All these people are basically kept in ignorance. Like in the military, they call this a need-to-know basis, right? Just play your role, don't ask about the bigger picture. Don't take a look at the bigger picture. Only the guys at the top see the bigger picture, and the guys at the top are basically siphoning off all this effort and energy from the people that are compartmentalized at the bottom. We are at the bottom. Chris Brown's maybe one step above us. He's not at the top of the pyramid by any stretch of the imagination. Yeah, again, it's mockery to me in your face. I don't know why people would wear that and give them like $80. Give him like $80 for a t-shirt. But whatever, man, I can't stop them. I'm not going to go find these people and debate with them about it. They just got to realize it on their own. A lot of electricity companies, technology companies, security companies, broadcasting companies use Saturn symbolism. This one, obviously, this little whoosh is like the rings of Saturn. Saturn L, electric, ink. And that's a lot of the reason technology is associated with Saturn. That prefix L-E-L means Saturn. The god they're talking about when they say L is Saturn. That's not me speculating right there. That's just a fact. How the rings of the planet Saturn affect the weather on our Earth. Shows this little diagram. I don't see, some people go as far. See, I'm kind of at the point where I look at Saturn like a symbol for like a set of attributes, a psychology, a mentality, a will, like to carry out a certain category of actions, and a certain pattern of behavior. And some people take it to the next level where they look at it like scientifically, like this thing is actually, like the planet itself is actually having some kind of effect on our Earth. And I'm not dismissing that. That's totally possible, and I kind of believe that stuff more and more as I look into things, but I'm not capable of giving you a coherent explanation of that. Professor Turner's interesting theory of whirling masses of meteorites that make sunspots and so fill the universe with storm-producing electricity. So we got this Saturn bar or restaurant. I think it's called the Saturn Bar. I could be wrong. And they got all these Saturn lights hanging, and then beneath it says "No ban, no wall, sanctuary for all." And this isn't even like a political thing, man. This isn't a race thing. But if we're talking about New World Order, which symbolically Saturn represents that, the dissolving of nation states is a key step in achieving that vision, that New World Order vision, that consolidation of power. And it's just, I just thought it was ironic. I'm not saying the guys that put this here necessarily knew this, but I just thought it was interesting that the no ban, no wall, sanctuary for all was right underneath this Saturn, and those kind of go hand in hand. And again, it's not a race thing. If you understand some of the geopolitics that was going on in the Middle East, there was obvious, if you really look into it, an obvious purposeful destabilization of the region, like in Libya, Iraq, Afghanistan, and Syria next, and Iran, and the actual, they'll say nowadays, like newscasters will say nowadays, oh, America's failing to learn from its mistakes. The foreign policy plan was a total disaster, a mistake, an accident. And that's actually not true, because we repeated the same behavior over and over again. You can maybe make the case for that, for Iraq or Afghanistan, whatever one we were in first, but when we go into regions and destabilize governments and fund terrorist groups, you're creating a power vacuum. There's interviews of Dick Cheney acknowledging what he was going to do. He knew what was going to happen. He knew what he was doing. Anyways, man, this isn't a freaking video on geopolitics. I'm just trying to show you that it's not as simple as calling people a racist when you talk about immigration and things like that. It's not as simple, as there's a lot of moving parts going on, and people don't care to know or look into things, and they just rather think it's like a Republican Democrat thing. And I don't believe in politics at this point. This is on the body of one of the Charles Manson's victims, the Manson family's victims. I don't think Charles Manson himself ever killed anyone. This W right here, that's not a W, that's a seal of Saturn. There's something about this AR. Someone said the AR means something. I don't know. I don't remember what he said. I don't know what it is. But I can tell you for a fact, this W in the word war is not a W. That's a seal of Saturn. And if you remember what it looked like, it was the first image I showed you, and the one that Chucky was standing behind from the Rugrats. So again, and we talked about the Heaven's Gate cult. Now we got the Manson family cult making a Saturn reference. Bit weird, right? There's a lot of researchers out there who point to X as another Saturn symbol. And you can maybe, say it's because the 4 points of the X make a box, make a cube, like the X box. The fact that, speaking on Xbox, like the console, the fact that the machine is a black cube, it's a piece of technology that basically removes you from the real world and creates like a matrix. And I get it, video games are fun and all that, but it's escapism, and that's really another key component to the Saturn mentality, like creating an illusion, building a fake reality. Again, there's something about this X, and then he's got this, space thing going on, and like this ring around his head. Escape, like escapism, like I was just saying to you, wanting to escape reality. And he's got this ring around his head. I'm not saying this is a definite one. You know, this is me speculating a little bit. So don't. Some of these are going to be like that. Some of them are for sure. Some of them are not so sure. So we got here, now we got Charles Manson with the X on his head. And I mean, it was originally an X and it was turned into a swastika. But, and again, some people say a swastika is just an unfinished cube. And I don't know too much about that. But the Nazis used black sun symbolism a ton. And the black sun is Saturn. Same with the communists. Same with the Zionist Jews. Same with a lot of people that basically want to rule the world and think others are, you know, they think they're the chosen and they think everyone else is meant to serve them or meant to die. You know, things like that. Anyways, and how I was just talking about how X could, and I've heard people say can mean Saturn, and then the swastika, and then we have, let me X this out. And then we have this guy, Philo of Byblos. And he's one of the guys, I think, you know, again, I don't know too much about the history of him, but he's got the X on his head, just like Manson. And, or at least on his helmet or hat, but it's like, you know, where his forehead would be. And he's one, I think his history goes back to the Phoenicians, and the Phoenicians are people that basically were the first pioneers of the financial system as we know it today. And obviously the financial system isn't the control system. It's not like the final frontier. That's like time and space and things that aren't really necessarily man-made. But the financial system is a symptom or an expression or an extension of that control system. And the Phoenicians were one of the first people to carry that out. They were kind of symbolic of that at this point. And again, I'm not like an expert on their history, so it's just something to look into. I'm blowing through these quick. You know, I can't... You can make entire videos about one picture that I'm talking about. Again, we have one of the members of the Manson family with an X carved into their forehead. She was probably one of the ones that actually did some of the killing. I don't know her name, but again, that seemed like, you know, it was part of the rule to get an X carved on your forehead. That another symbol that goes back to Saturn that I can't personally articulate for you, but there's something to be said about it, or there's something to it, and other researchers on this subject would probably be able to explain it better to you, but I've heard over and over again of the bell. You know, how I said there's a million symbols that point to the same thing. The bell can also mean Saturn. What I was saying was there's a bunch of symbols that ultimately go back to the same thing, and bell, I've heard bell being associated with Saturn a bunch of times. I don't know why. I can't explain it. There are researchers who can. I don't really know what the connection between bell and Saturn is, but I thought it was interesting that this liquor company is called Bell's, and they're making a Saturn the bringer of old age. Well, obviously, we know that one. That one's obvious. So there's two symbols going on here. There's the bell, then there's the Saturn and the old age. And we know Saturn can represent time. We know to the Greeks, Saturn is Chronos. And Chronos is time, like chronological. And that one's not hidden. That's obvious. And I've done a bunch of videos specifically on that. But it's interesting that the bells... And then that, and then so you know they named it that because it's a malt beverage aged in oak bourbon barrel casks, bottled and brewed and bottled by Bell's Brewery. Here's another beverage called Prometheus Springs, and you know here in the bottom right we have Saturn, or planet with rings around it, which is, you know, associated with Saturn. Control the spice, control the universe. We have the Ouroboros dragon snake eating its own tail, which is a circle, which represents time. This one has a crown on its head, like it's deifying or kinging, putting on a pedestal that time, which is basically Saturn worship. And then in the middle of the freaking snake circle, we have the Seal of Saturn. And in the name Prometheus, is another god who, gave man fire. I don't know if he's exactly Saturn, but if you've ever seen the movie 2001 Space Odyssey, the chimps, there's this black monolith that appears, which is basically the black cube, and I don't know a lot about that movie, but from what I understand, the chimps coming into contact with that is what gave them the ability to use electricity and make technology and things like that. So we have that black cube symbolism in Space Odyssey 2001, and now we've got this Prometheus, Seal of Saturn, Time, Serpent, Saturn in the bottom right, control the universe. These guys really did not, hold back on the symbolism in their drink. I'm just, I'm not saying don't buy it or whatever, but I'm just showing you it's right here. They used pretty much like 4 of them all at once. Sorry. Here's a Scrooge McDuck cartoon, comic, whatever. You'd better get used to that monstrosity, ma'am. It's here to stay. He's got the cube, which is a big vault of his money. So there's layers of symbolism on this, and the cube represents Saturn. How I was talking about with the Phoenicians, the monetary system is an extension of the Saturnian thought, and it's obviously a tool for control. It keeps people in line for sure, and me too. I'm not saying I'm outside of it, but obviously we don't need to compromise our principles and our freedom and our values just for an extra buck. And we don't really need a lot of the crap, the fancy stuff that we care so much about. We're overindulging. Anyways, it's not about that. And even the S, I've heard people say the straight line is linear time, and then there's a sine wave, and the snake, and that S can represent the snake. And it's weird that this cube is on top of this hill. He's like, you better get used to that monstrosity, ma'am. It's here to stay. Yeah, because, who can really get rid of time? Who can really get rid of the cube? You probably can't really get outside of it until you die. But, the worship of this thing is kind of where I draw the line. Okay, I can understand it, and we can think of ways as an antidote to living and contending with the reality of this stuff. But when we start worshiping it and, putting it in the position of God, that's kind of where I draw the line. The New Yorker magazine cover, March 5th, 2012. I was going to do a whole video on this specific thing and weird magazine covers. So now we got Saturn in the middle. See, all these other places seem normal, right? We got Financial District. Here's this beach, Nebraska. Mount Fuji, Las Vegas. All these places are kind of normal, right? And then now we got in the middle of everything, there's Saturn. And to the right of it, we have the center of the Earth. And, I don't know a lot about it, but obviously Nazis used black sun symbolism, which is Saturn. And then Hitler was obviously talking about, I think I touched on this in other videos too, the new man, the concept of the new man going to the center of the Earth, and there's this aliens or advanced race or entities that he could commune with and cooperate with or gain something from. There's a lot of, history or talks or stories about the center of the Earth. There's even movies like Journey to the Center of the Earth. I don't know. I'm actually curious now in those movies what they were looking for why they went there. What were they looking for in the center of the Earth, and what did they find when they got there? Now that when you put it in the context of this, Hitler was absolutely believe that there was something in the center of the Earth, and that's enough of a reason for me to be he's obviously a crazy guy, but it's he's a big historical figure that led a country, so it's that's enough for me to kind of take the idea a little bit seriously. At least symbolically, maybe not. I don't know. And then obviously the reason I include it is you have Saturn in the middle. It's just weird, just weird. I can't tell you what it means. This is me being maybe over the top. In this Brighton beach, there's this starfish, and it's like an inverted star, like the pentagram. That's probably just me. If it wasn't for the Saturn and the center of the Earth thing, I probably wouldn't point that out, but since those are there, I'm kind of pointing that out. And there could be crap in here that I'm not even saying. Anyways, there's that. I don't have too much to say about that one. Here's another, Scrooge McDuck, Donald Duck thing. There ahead is the headquarters of the great rich tycoon Flint Hart Glomgold. A money bin almost exactly like yours, Uncle Scrooge. So again, a big money bin in the shape of a cube. And instead of the sine wave $ S on it, I think that's the British pound sign, which is ironically L, which is like EL. Obviously the E is not there, but L is Saturn. Like when you say L, you just kind of say it like the letters pronounced. EL is the name of a god for Saturn. Just another example from there. I don't have too much to say about that. I don't even know what this building is. I forgot what. I saved it because Saturn was on top of it, but it's called the Saturn Building. I don't know what function it serves, what kind of business goes on there. It could be like a restaurant. It could be like a place of research or something. Something interesting, I don't actually have pictures of it. The Bill Nye the Science Guy, and Neil, he has I think he has a group called like the Planetary Society or the Planetary Association or something like that. And their symbol that they chose is the rings of Saturn. It's kind of weird. Like especially as an astrophysicist and like astronomers and stuff like that. There's so many other things you could choose from. Like, why is it always Saturn? Why did you have to choose that as the symbol for your association? And when like that planetary society gives out awards for whatever reason to dignify to whatever people that have achieved something or that they like, I don't know what categories they have and why they give out awards, but the awards that they hand out to people are trophies in the shape of, you guessed it, Saturn. The cube with the money, yipes, it's heading for this is in 1997. Obviously, this is reminiscent of September 11th, 2001. Yipes, it's heading for my brand new twin office towers. Boom. And obviously, again, I'm not like a mason and stuff. There's something about the two pillars. The Tree of Life has two pillars. The Masons have two pillars. You've all seen that with the two pillars and then the checkerboard flooring. I'm not a Mason. I'm not a Kabbalist. I don't know a whole lot about that symbolism, but that two pillars thing, it's like there's so many layers to the 9/11 event. There's a symbolic, ritualistic, occult layer to it. There's a geopolitical, monetary, false flag level to it. There's a lot of things, and if I was going to try and get someone on the total outside of all this stuff to think about 9/11 in a different way, I would go about it like showing them like the geopolitical aspects of it, like the political, the documents, the quotes from leaders and things like that. I wouldn't go the occult route. The occult route's sort of like the cherry on top of the shit sundae, It's like stuff that you look into after. Anyway, so the cube goes through the two towers. Looks like you just lost 2 rental properties. But maybe I gained a nice tourist attraction. So, I don't know. That's a little weird. And it's a little weird that, this is just one of the million examples of what could be potentially described as predictive programming of the Twin Towers being obliterated way before 2001. So, there's so many of those examples, it's hard to believe that they're all coincidence, to be honest with you. I believe, at least on paper, that event, there's a plan called the Odid Yunan plan, and they're talking about this sort of thing since the 1980s. So that's at least 20 years before the event, and who knows, there's a guy, I'm getting a little off topic now, but there's a guy that was talking about we can't conceive how another man would plan like 50 years into the future, 100 years into the future, because we don't even plan our weeks out and things like that. And yeah, he's right. There's companies, like even on a corporate level, there's companies that have like 50-year plans, you know. People think way, 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 way ahead into the future, and they act accordingly in order to get there. So why would geopolitics and things like that be any different? Just to show you again, the Chronos Saturn Time, this watch company, watches tell time, obviously. And anyways, yep, Chronos Time watch. They obviously are referencing mythology when they're naming their product. Here's a character from here's Chronos from a video game. It's a I forgot the name of it, but it's an arena game where all the players pick different gods from different mythologies and they battle it out. This is Chronos from that game, and he controls time. Obviously, he's got the sickle and the scythe. So there's that symbolism again. The sickle and the scythe both go back to Saturn. It's why the Soviet Union used it. I've already explained that in my first video a little bit more, but here again, Chronos Studios, the future of history. I don't really know what these guys do. I saved it because obviously, look, Chronos, and then their logo is Saturn with that little gleam of light back there. Maybe that means something, but I don't know what to make of it. Chronos, so there's how I showed you the watch company. There's Chronos and Time. Now here's Chronos and Saturn. These companies are naming their stuff and using pictures based off ancient stories and mythology. Here's something called a book, or here's a book called The Door to Saturn. People talk about, like the Tower of Bab-El. There's a bunch of ways you can look at that story, but people argue that like CERN and things like that are trying to open a portal or open a rift in the dimension into the spiritual dimension or into the psychology dimension, like the realm of thought, things like that. That stuff's pretty far out there, but when you look at the symbolism used by big tech companies like CERN and the things that they name their projects and machines after, it is a little bit weird, and it gets to be a little believable. Well, yeah, it's the door to Saturn, and then you have this like aged person. I don't know what to make of it. I'm just showing you stuff that I've found. I don't have too much to say about that one. Here's an amp for guitar, bass, whatever. How I said black star, black sun, dark star are all Saturn. The eclipse sun, black star, it's all Saturn. And so we have a black cube called black star, so it's like double Saturn. That could just be me reading into it, but I don't think it's an accident that they named it black star. They make the amp black, make it a cube, things like that. And it's a piece of technology on top of it. I haven't listened to the record, but David Bowie's last album, I believe, was called Black Star or Dark Star, one of the two. And I think this is a picture from one of the music videos. I don't know. I should have watched it. I don't know what's going on in the music video. I'm just looking for symbols and conveying them back to you guys. And hopefully one of them means something to you. But obviously, he's holding, it's like some priest figure in the music video from what I can tell. He's holding up what looks like a biblical book with a black star on it, which is Saturn. That's Saturn worship. I don't know what role this guy was playing in the music video. I just thought it was worth noting. And David Bowie did die after releasing this album, I think. But yeah, the black star is Saturn. So there's that. Here is a guy from an anime called Soul Eater, and I think his name is Black Star, and the anime is called Soul Eater, and it's just another indication, another example of the black star Saturn symbolism in movies, music, things like that, television. Trying to go through these quick because this video is getting to be long and my computer's having a hard time. Arkham Horror, The Door to Saturn, another door to Saturn. Call of Cthulhu. Here's this like tentacle creature coming out of this doorway from another dimension, and the door to Saturn. So again, with the portal, Saturn symbolism, demons coming through on the other end, or monsters, or however you want to describe that. This, I could have done a whole video on this one. This is one of the first televisions, right? Called the Baird Television. You know, there's the screen. It's one of the first televisions ever made. And obviously, why I saved it is because, and I've talked about earlier in this video how technology is associated with Saturn, escapism is associated with Saturn. You know, the television is a tool for control. It's a tool for the public to escape from their problems and realities and responsibilities and things like that. And the television's easily one of the best tools for mind control that was ever created. And it's just kind of ironic. It's just stupid. It's just obvious that one of the first TVs ever has, there it is, the Saturn, or at least a sphere with a, you know, ring-like thing around it. It's obvious. And that's not an accident that they put that on the first TV. Here's the logo a little more clear, because obviously on that old TV set it's like rusted up and everything. So it's hard to tell what it is. But here it is. Oh, here it is. B-A-R-I-D. Or B-A-I-R-D. Television. The eye of the world. The Earth with an eye exposed, right? Cloud-like thing around it. It's clouding our vision. Things, I don't know. It's just weird, man. Why is this on the television? Like, why is this on one of the first TVs? The eye of the world. You know, it's kind of weird now, too. We're talking about, like, smart TVs being able to listen in and things like that. Again, man, if you want my honest opinion about the television, you should probably just turn it off. I stopped watching TV 4 years ago, 5 years ago, something like that. I still watch internet videos, like independent researchers, and maybe I should cut back on that, but I definitely don't watch Hulu, Netflix, cable TV, satellite TV. Mainstream news, I don't mess with any of it. I don't think you should either. I've gotten way smarter from just doing my own independent studying. Anyways, there it is on the first TV. A picture from The Ring, the movie The Ring. Obviously The Ring, Saturn has rings. This picture looks like an eclipsed sun. The eclipsed sun, the dark star, the black sun is Saturn. So we have the ring, we have the black sun. When you watch the movie, you die in 7 days. Saturn has 7 rings. The demon girl crawls out of the television, which is a cube. The television could be, you know how I showed you the doorway to Saturn? It's like the portal for these entities to come through. And I don't know too much about like the lore, the story of the ring. I forgot. It used to creep me out as a kid. What happened to that girl? Obviously, like, you know, what this picture is in the story, not symbolically, is she's trapped in a well and someone pushes the lid of the well over, and this is like the last bit of light shining through before the well cover totally covers the top of the well, and she's trapped in there. You know, when you put the television technology cube, the demon crawling through, the ring, Saturn has rings, you die in 7 days, this looks a lot like a picture of an eclipsed sun. You know, I don't think it's an accident. That could be me reading into it, you know, you don't have to believe me, but that's how I take that. This is from a Disney show, the show is called, I think the Disney show was called like The Wander Over Yonder, something like that. If you look it up, like Wander Over Yonder Black Cube, I would show you the video, but I'd probably get copyright for it. It's like a musical thing. It's like Black Cube of Darkness, like the guy keeps singing that. And the black cube represents Saturn, obviously, and he is living a crappy life. Like, the world is shit to him. You know, he lost his girlfriend. It's basically portraying him in, like, you know, with a crappy job, a crappy life, no girlfriend, living in a rundown apartment. And something, you know, again, I don't know the story of this show, but something snaps in him, and the people are mean to him, and he ends up wanting to destroy the Earth. So it's just weird that they associated the black cube with evil, and he's ready to destroy everything. Whether his evilness comes from pain that he's experienced, you know, they portray him with like a bad life, and I understand that, but again, I have other videos on that. This is just about the symbolism. Black Cube, please don't freak out. So this is like his only friend, you know, trying to stop him from, you know, this is where the Black Cube finally had enough and he was getting ready to like destroy everything. I don't know. And this is like his one friend trying to stop him. All this mob behind him, they're angry at him for something. Saturn Awards. I think it's some kind of like, you know, Emmy or like Oscar, some sort of award for film. And it's just weird. Why would you pick Saturn out of all? Just another Saturn symbolism. Don't have too much to say about that. I have a video talking about eclipse suns and black suns and dark solar cults, and this picture I used in that video. This is from an anime called Berserk. This is a highly, highly, highly symbolic picture to me. So we have obviously the sun the sun being eclipsed. Probably a couple major components to this. The sun being eclipsed, his friend, which is named Guts, running to this guy named Griffith. And at this point, this is the point in the story, not to spoil it, where Griffith gets ready to sacrifice all of his friends, all of his teammates, everyone he loves and knows and cares about to gain power. Again, you know, there's a joke, an online joke called Griffith Did Nothing Wrong, because like he's in this torn down state, you know what I mean? He was tortured, his body's like ravaged. He's like a shell of the man he used to be in the story. And it's at this point in desperation that he offers everyone he cares about in order to basically make this transition from a man to a demon, which he even changes his name. He stops being Griffith and he's called Femto. This is a really good show. This ending messed me up for a while, but it's highly symbolic. So again, someone's, you know, getting ready because of all the pain in the world to give up, to sacrifice everything. You have the Saturn black sun solar eclipse symbolism, and his friend, which is like the true hero in the stories, his friend running to his side to try and stop him. Obviously, he isn't able to, but this is the true good guy. And like I said, there's a joke online about Griffith did nothing wrong. We've all heard like, oh, Hitler did nothing wrong. It's a joke in the sense that it's just meant to be like shock and awe, like obviously not true, because he like rapes this girl and he sacrifices all of his friends so he can gain power. And again, you know, it's all about, you know, not becoming a human anymore. This whole agenda, this whole Saturn agenda is anti-human. They're trying to become God. And I don't know, man. You gotta check out this show. This is a highly symbolic picture, and this is the guy you want to be, in my estimation. That's the guy I want to be. It's hard, but that's the real hero. This is the Antichrist. That's the Christ. This is the hero. This is the anti-hero. It's a good show. You should check it out. So the black sun, solar eclipse, Saturn symbolism going on there. Sacrifice, you know, things like that. Anyways, here is a graduation cap, which could be like a flattened out black cube. You know, some people say it is a Saturn reference, like you've been educated to operate within the Saturn system, and you know that's why you put on the all black and wear the black cap. And black is associated with Saturn. That's why police and judges wear black, because they're enforcers and priests of the Saturn system. Something from Marvel. I don't know a lot about it. It had cube in it, so that's why I saved it. And the cube location undisclosed. It has been a long time since S.H.I.E.L.D. sent an agent to the cube, Director Hill. So, if you know anything about Marvel, obviously to get the deeper insight about like the cube, you'd have to know what goes on at the cube location. Like why do they do that? What do they do there? Why has it been a long time since S.H.I.E.L.D. has sent an agent to the cube? Just interesting that they name a certain facility the Cube. I don't know about what role it plays in the story, but it could be important. How I said Saturn's associated with like authority and tyranny and security. Like tyranny is basically like excessive security or like false security. And here's a security services, and they name their thing Saturn, and they're using Saturn as their symbolism. You know, you could like think of like government, one world government. It's like global security. At least that's how they're going to peddle it to you. Anytime freedom is, like Ben Franklin said, I think, anytime people sacrifice liberty for security, freedom for security, in the end will get neither or deserve neither. I probably butchered that, but it's something like that. And if you really pay attention to the news stories and things like that, anytime a restriction on your freedom is being suggested to you, it's going, the bargaining chip that they're going to use is it's for your own good, it's for your own safety, or it's for the safety of the kids, or whatever, something like that, right? That's always how it is. And there's some, you know, legitimacy to that argument, but that's just how they operate. Ben Franklin or whoever, whatever American, I don't know if it's he said that original phrase, but they even realized that hundreds of years ago. So how we don't know it now is ridiculous. Here's a video game developer company, Starbreeze. This looks like a black sun to me, and like a, you know, a sun with like a evil grin on his face. They made a game called, they might have had some more popular games, but the one I know them for is a video game called The Darkness. And it's about like, and it's a good game, you know, no hate, it's a good game, I liked it a lot, but it's about a demon possessing this guy, and he's going to get revenge on this dude for killing his girlfriend. And in the end, he gets revenge, and he just ends up being totally consumed by the darkness. So there's really no good guys in that story, and there's really no happy ending. But the symbol for their game developing company seems to be like the black sun to me. Again, that could be speculation. And I think the game they're most well known for is about like demonic possession, the darkness. It's on the Xbox 360, maybe the PS3. It's a good game. How I talked about, again, I can't necessarily make the connection for you, but some people say there's a connection between Bell and Saturn. This is a character from Red Dead Redemption 2. Everyone hates him. And his name's Micah or Micah Bell. I think it's Micah. I haven't finished the game. I played a little bit of it. I've heard about the ending, and I stumbled across this. And his name's Micah Bell. And he is like the snake of the story. He betrays like the hero or the Jesus of the story, who's named Arthur Morgan, the guy that you play as, the protagonist. And this is like the rat in the group, the snake in the group, and he's like the betrayer, and they named him Micah Bell. And again, that could just be nothing. It could be nothing, and it's especially hard for you to believe it when I can't even articulate what the connection between Bell and Saturn is. But there are a lot of people out there who make a connection. I just can't tell you what it is. I don't know a lot about it. It was enough for me to save this picture. And if that's true, it makes sense. If Bell is Saturn, and it makes sense that's this dude's name because he's like the snake in the grass. Yahoo, you know, like the old like Yahoo Mail. I don't know if they still operate. He got that name for that company after the god Yahoo. They, instead of Y-A-H-U, he just put Y-A-H-O-O. He spelled it like that. And the guy that made that was named David Philo, like Philo of Byblos. So it's just weird coincidences or weird connections. Hebrew name of God, Yahoo, Yahweh, Yahoo, Yah, on the assumption that A and E are the correct vowels. Yahweh is a name of God in the Hebrew language. Yahoo is a well-attested short form of the full extended name Yahweh. The name Joel or Joel is derived from the combining of the word Jah and the word El, and El is Saturn. So Yahoo, Yahweh, Saturn. I have more on that in the first Saturn worship video. Again, that's where I covered more basic grounds of this stuff. This is just me doing overkill. Saturn, the world in tarot cards, the middle finger, the mount of Saturn, the scythe, the sickle, grain, agriculture, civilization building, watch, time, hourglass. So again, you just see a bunch of the same stuff I've been telling you over and over again. The world, like how the Bible says, the God of this world. You walked according to the course of this world. It's Satan. Saturn is Satan. The world in tarot. It's not an accident. Saturn's prime attribution in the major arcana is to the world. Blah, blah, blah. Although the world is a card of contemplation, achievement, self-realization, the Saturn energy also suggests boundaries and limitations, like death. Additional meanings of the world derived from Saturn: the end of the line, as good as it gets, the need for self-regulation, maintaining of what has been achieved. Okay. You know, I'm just going to read this to you. I'm not going to give too much of my insight. I'm trying to end this video. It's gone on way too long, but at this point I might as well finish what I started. Saturn reflects our innate desire for the structure and order, and in the devil, which is the devil card in tarot, its energy is reflected in hard-working nature, which can easily descend into slaving along in dull routines, narrow-mindedness, and lack of growth. In astrology, Saturn is regarded as the greater malefic, which means it can indicate negative energy such as hardship and sadness. Saturn in tarot is linked to the following pip card. That's just minor arcana stuff. So there you have that. Again, I'm just going to read this to you. Not going to really give my insight. Saturn is associated with the higher chakras, and specifically the sixth chakra, guiding us to one of the highest levels on our path of spiritual evolution. Saturn is associated with time and is timeless. Saturn is the planet of time, and in its highest sense, it helps us realize that we are beyond time, and that we are one with the universe, and that we come from stardust. Okay, we literally are made of the complex molecules which have had to have passed through numerous stars to even exist. Okay, anyways, this is I think I saved it because it's saying that Saturn's associated with the sixth chakra, and I'm pretty sure that would be the third eye. And then there's the crown, which is one above. So, you know, people think of Satan as like a worm in the dirt, and he's actually like the god of this world, and there's only one higher above him, and that's like the real God, the creator, yada yada. But again, there's parallels between all occult traditions, from tarot, Kabbalah, Masonry, things like that. All of them. They all have astrological parallels, psychological meanings, things like that. Here's another central security group, and then, you know, their name isn't Saturn, but in the middle they have a big circle with the G in central security group, like the ring. So obvious Saturn reference, again, in a security company, right? So again, you just think about, why is Saturn associated with security and building a world government and things like that. And it's even in the very imagery of the corporations, like of security groups. Anyways, that's it. That's the last picture I have for you guys. The last two don't really matter. Thanks for watching. Let me know what you think. I'm going to end this drawn out video now.